He went to see his boss, Mr. Kunle, and pleaded with him to pay him 6 months of his salary upfront to enable him pay for his wife's surgery. Mr. Kunle told him that his company does not run a charity organization, that he should source for funds through other means. He told Olu that he would pay for his wife's surgery and that Olu would not have to pay him back, but on the condition that he marries his daughter, Shade. 1 year later after their wedding, and there was no sign that Shade was with child, Kunle started to make comments, drawing his wife's attention to the fact that he was expecting her to be pregnant already. 2 years passed and still nothing happened. Kunle became restless, and his behavior towards her became even more terrible. Tayo had attended the same secondary school as her and her brother. In fact, Tayo and her brother Dele were very good friends back then. She went over to say hello to him. Tayo was surprised to see her and gave her a big hug, looked around and laughed, saying, "The simplest thing a woman is supposed to do, you couldn't even do that. You are useless, completely useless, and I don't care if you leave or stay." The board of directors voted Kunle out and voted in Tayo as the new CEO of the company. Tayo reintroduced Shade to Kunle as his fiancée, who was in town for her youth service. Kunle remained speechless. He tried to apologize but could not find the words. He excused himself and left Tayo's office. It's been 4 years since Tayo and Shade officially became a couple. 2 years into their relationship, Tayo asked Shade to marry him. Shade was very glad. Finally, a decent, reasonable, and respectful man who adored her. Without a second thought, she accepted. In a way, Shade was glad to have experienced Kunle and how badly he treated her, because now she knew what it felt like to have a good man love her, and she was grateful for Tayo every day. Her parents were elated. Dele was happy and at peace because he knew without a doubt that his sister was with a good man. Shade had the privilege of serving at the company during her NYSC. Tayo had made sure she was one of the coppers who were accepted for service in the company. She worked at the accounts department, but working at the company meant she had to come face to face with Kunle almost on a daily basis. The first time she saw Kunle after her return, he seemed remorseful, but recently, Shade had noticed some sort of anger from him, channeled toward her. She had spoken to Tayo about it, but Tayo had told her to just ignore him. Ever since Kunle lost his seat as CEO, the constant tension and anxiety that seemed to settle in the company's atmosphere had eased off. Workers seemed more relaxed and happy. Apart from that, Kunle seemed to have lost his respect with workers, who now ignore him. Mr. Olu, Shade's father, had resigned from the company and started a small business for himself. Tayo and Shade had scheduled their wedding for after Shade's NYSC. It was a grand affair. Shade had pleaded with her husband, saying she had been married once and just wanted it to be something of a small gathering. Tayo had said, "It is nothing but the best for my love." Olu, Remy and Dele were so happy on that day. The members of staff were all present. Everyone except Kunle. He had an invitation, of course, but he sure knew the sensible thing to do was not show up. And the gossips did their round of gossiping as well. Some thought the couple were perfect for each other and made jest of Kunle. Others thought the union was not right, even if Kunle deserved what he got. But nevertheless, the couple were at bliss. They traveled to Europe for their honeymoon and were there for 3 weeks. By the time they returned, the company was planning its end-of-year party. Partners and investors were invited. It was a big party. Everyone was there. The CEO, Tayo, gave his welcome speech, but not before introducing his lovely wife. It was time to dance and everyone picked a partner. Kunle was busy chatting with the investors. Shade was chatting with some colleagues when Kunle interrupted them. He asked Shade to dance with him. Shade declined. "Oh, come on, Shade. I'm not going to bite. Besides, this wouldn't be your first time in my arms," he said with a smug smile. Shade still declined. Just then, Kunle asked the colleagues to excuse them, saying he wanted to speak with Shade alone. When they were alone, he said, "You've landed yourself another big fish, eh?" "What nonsense are you talking about, Kunle?" asked Shade. Kunle laughed, while his eyes was fixed on Shade in a threatening manner. "I always knew you were a gold digger. Since the very first time you walked into my office to accept my proposal, you thought I was the type of man you could fool into enriching your poverty-stricken family. But when that didn't work for you, you latched onto Tayo." "Oh, please, Kunle, don't flatter yourself," said Shade. "You're not such a catch. The only reason I agreed to your proposal was to save my mother's life. And honestly, I thought we could have been friends, maybe even lovers. But of course, a man like you loves no one but himself." "You're such a good liar too," Kunle said, running his index finger down her cheek. But Shade quickly moved her face away from his reach. "I was onto you then," said Kunle, "and I'm onto you now. And I will prove to Tayo you're nothing but a gold-digging." Kunle was about to complete his statement when Tayo reached out, pulled Shade away, and stood between Kunle and his wife. Shade had never seen Tayo so angry before. Then he moved closer to Kunle and said, "If you ever harass my wife again, I will teach you a lesson you won't forget in a hurry." He put his left arm around his wife and led her away. Kunle stood back and watched as they both disappeared into the crowd. Who the hell does Tayo think he is? He thought. To think he was going to take over his father's company, and now his woman, he will teach him a lesson. He put down his drink and left the party. The coming days at the office saw Kunle very quiet and invincible, almost like he was trying to hide away from the world. But he was always present at the office doing his job. Shade had stopped working at the company and had ventured into the world of fashion. It was the day of the grand opening of her fashion house. Tayo was about to leave the office, but then he sent his driver on an errand which should not have taken more than 20 minutes to run. He had tried to call the driver, but the line was not going through. He got tired of waiting and called Shade, who in turn sent his driver to pick him up. On his way out of the office, he bumped into Kunle, who seemed very surprised to see him, but said a greeting anyway. Tayo thought he had been quiet and respectful since his confrontation at the party. He only hoped he was not onto some foolish plot. The lunch was going well. Guests were so happy with Shade's brand and patronized her. Tayo was present at the event and was so proud of his wife and didn't forget to let people know that. Just when everything was going so well, Tayo's phone rang. He picked it up. Shade could see him tense. She walked up to him and asked what the matter was. Apparently, he had been trying to reach his driver, but the police had just called to inform him that his driver was involved in an accident. He told Shade he had to go to the police station. Shade offered to go with him, but he declined, saying she should attend to her guests. When Tayo got to the station, he was briefed. The driver was alive but sustained serious injuries. Another car was unfortunately involved, and the driver was unconscious with multiple injuries. According to his driver, his brake had malfunctioned. It was a narrow escape for Tayo, who was supposed to be in that car driving home, but he had sent his driver on an errand instead. It was the death anniversary of Mr. Olumide, Kunle's father. Kunle sat in his lavish living room going through family pictures. The company was his father's legacy to him, but he had lost it unfortunately. He still had shares in various companies, but the company was a legacy he would have preserved and passed on to his children. He had always told his father that he wasn't interested in running the family business. He wanted to do something else, something that made him happy. When he had the opportunity to travel out, he did and never wanted to return. But his father's plea on his sickbed was one he could not resist. Now that he lost the company, he was financially limited. If he decided to sell all the shares he owns, it will still not be enough for what he needed money for. He had to find a way to generate funds for what he was about to do. It's been 8 months since Sade and Tayo got married. Tayo was doing well as CEO of the company. Their business was booming and the board of directors were happy. Kunle's attitude had been in check and he seemed humbled. Sade was heavy and expecting. Twice, she had visited her husband for lunch at the office, but she pretty much wanted Kunle to see and know that she was capable of bearing children. She glowed. Pregnancy really suited her, and Tayo pampered her. One day, on one of her visits to her husband's office, she met Tayo worried while going over some monthly financial reports. When she asked what the matter was, he said he had found some discrepancies. Sade looked over the reports to understand what he was saying. With Sade's advice, Tayo moved up the company's annual auditing, which usually took place at the end of the year. So as it happened, external auditors were hired. Departments submitted their financial reports and records, and it was discovered that a whopping sum of money had been embezzled. The board of directors had a brief meeting and decided to call in the authorities. The accountant was arrested and held for questioning. During the period he was in detention, Kunle was absent from work. He had called in sick. Finally, after some serious questioning, the accountant confessed to having connived with Kunle to embezzle the company's fund. He also confessed that was the reason the company ran into debts initially. Kunle, with his help, was diverting funds meant for projects. When the police went to pick Kunle, they found out that he had left the country. With some connections and investigations, he was apprehended in Ghana and brought back to Nigeria. After 6 months in police cell, the company released him, but on the condition that he would relinquish his shares and tender his resignation. The company also took possession of his landed properties. Kunle had no idea the company would discover the discrepancies as fast as it did. He did not have time to clean up his mess. His initial plan was to sell off his landed properties, cars, shares, and relocate. He already sold the shares he owned with other companies and most of his cars, except the one he was using at the time. The company was also able to recover part of the money from him. Meanwhile, Sade had put to bed a beautiful baby girl they named Oluwatoyin. Her naming ceremony was grand, and the couple were very glad and felt blessed. And so, the once wealthy, arrogant, rude, and disrespectful Mr. Kunle lost everything he inherited from his father. A legacy which would have been passed on to generations to come was gone with the wind. Kunle relocated to Ghana, where he was able to start up a small business. He opened up a small business center for typing and photocopying. He was able to afford 2 workers who worked for him. We remember our lesson from the previous story. Pride goes before destruction, and a haughty spirit before a fall. Thank you so much for listening to my story today. If you enjoyed it, then let me know in the comment section. Share the story with anyone who you think will enjoy it too. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and leave me a big heart. Let me know that you listened to the end of this story, okay? I'll see you guys in my next one. Bye.